Hello, hello. Do we have anybody with smudge yet? Sage? Where's the Oskape Osak? Is there still lots of people in the hallways? Go hunt them down for me. You from Little Pine, where is she? Go hunt them down. Tessa. That's her name, Tessa. Hi. Where are you from then? Beardies? Oh yeah.
So how, you want me to introduce you then?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're gonna get started. First of all, I hope you guys all had a really good sleep and I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves last night. It was really nice to see our youth running the round dance last night. Let's give everyone a round of applause for all their hard work last night. I want to say thank you and commend all of our team in making sure that that ran as smoothly as possible. Now today, our keynote speaker that we're going to be presenting is Andre Baer. Andre Baer has his Bachelor's of Education, JD, I don't know what that stands for, he'll do it, sorry, my apologies, Andre. Is a Niheo Juris Doctor graduate who also received his Bachelor's of Education with the University of Saskatchewan. In 2023, he received a full ride scholarship to pursue his LLM or Masters of Law. At 21 years old, Andre was appointed as a special advisor to the Minister of Crown, Indigenous Relations Canada for the implementation of TRC Call to Action 66. He's a former director on the Indigenous Bar Association, most recently was appointed to the board of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. In 2021, Andre founded a consulting firm called Indigenous Nations Rebuilding, where he now works to revitalize the practice of Indigenous lawmaking. Let's welcome Andre Baer.
Hi. Thank you, Carmen. She's my Sundance sister. And thank you guys for having me. Danse, nawagumaganti kitamskata nawakakyo. Nanaskmon into tawieg. Egwa nanaskmon kakyogi guay. Mamu tawi mausimanto nagawiski. Ogi segawaka te ukana wakego mamustawaganak. Nanaskmon ki scalpi simic, xeno piasu, xeno yo teneguapus quamustus. Wapas tim kauch to tit sagastanuk na peltsiga son. Hello everybody, my name is Andre Baer. I'm from both the Little Pine First Nation and the Canoe Lake First Nation, and I'm also kind of from Beardies. No, I'm just kidding, no I'm not. But I was shacked up there once. Just kidding. And in Wapayton. Put your hands up if you're from Wapayton. We're probably related. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so there's lots of people from Wapayton here. How many from Beardies? Okay. You shouldn't tell people when you're from there. Just kidding. Just a joke. So I'm gonna ask the smudge man to go around to each table, and I'm gonna ask him, if you want to smudge, please do. If you don't, you don't have to. But I would like our Scopios over here, he'll put his hand up. He's gonna come around with smudge, and he'll use sage, so if there's women on their time, depending on your teachings, I was taught that women can smudge with sage, but not sweetgrass when they're on their time. aside from that, it's not for me to tell a woman what to do, so please do what you want. And what I would like to do is have all of us kind of cleansed in the right mind, so we can all come together for this next little while that I have with you. What I'm going to do today is, first thing, we're going to smudge, and then the next thing, I'm going to tell you a story. After I tell you a story, depending on how good you listen to me, we're going to play a game. And if you play this game and if you win, I'm going to have a really big prize for you. And you'll just have to wait and see what it is, but I'll have a prize for the winner. So after we play the game, I'll tell you one more story, and then after we play the game, we'll take a break after that, about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll come back, I'll tell you another story, we'll play another game, and then we'll be done for lunch. Okay, sound good? Wonderful. Has anybody ever seen me on TikTok before? You have? Okay. You don't have a phone? Where'd it go? Someone stole your phone? Who stole his phone? Somebody from Beardy's, right? Oh, somebody stole our phone? Okay. So, aside from anything I've ever done on TikTok, I want to talk about a little bit about who I am and where I'm from and why I'm here. So the reason why I'm standing before all of you today is because of my upbringing and all of the things that I was able to overcome as a young man. And what I mean by that is, like many of you, I had a very interesting childhood because I was raised by a single mother. That means I had no dad. And how many of you guys have a dad here? You guys are lucky. You guys are like unicorns, native kids with dads. Just kidding. They're so blessed. Look how privileged they are with a dad. It must be nice. Just kidding. So I grew up with a single mother, and she was a residential school survivor. So how many of your parents do you know went to residential school? Put up your hand. See, like pretty much all of us. And if it wasn't your parents, their parents most definitely did, right? So we were all affected by residential school. And because my mom went to residential school, and her parents went to residential school, it was really hard for her to live a normal life because she lived her entire life without hearing her parents tell her that they loved her. And so at 16 years old, she ended up running away from home, and around that time, she was in Saskatoon. She ran away from the reserve, 16 years old, went to Saskatoon, and she started to sell drugs at the Barrie Hotel. If all the older people in the room, they'll know exactly what I mean when I talk about the Barrie Hotel, right? So anyways, that's where my story began, is from the strength of my mom to keep on going besides all of the neglect that happened from residential schools. And I want to be very clear with every single one of you. We all have to truly understand that what happened to our parents was not their fault. And we have to truly accept that, even our grandparents, because even though my grandparents never told my mom that they loved her, I can't imagine what they were put through in residential school in order for them to have that kind of neglect in their hearts, right? Because it's a cycle, and that cycle had started somewhere, but like any cycle, that cycle also has to end somewhere, right? And so all of you now, even though we all carry the same burden of neglect and violence and abuse and addictions, all of us are impacted by those cycles in one way or another, but we all have the power to break those cycles. And that's something that I want us to really think about and consider. And I really hope that my story and what I'm showing you today gives you some encouragement, some empowerment, and maybe some ideas of how you can break these cycles on your own as well. So Me and my mom and my sisters, we grew up in the city of Saskatoon, about 20 minutes that way. We grew up in the hood. You know how in the hood it's all divided by the alphabet? It's like Avenue E, D, B, or I can't do my alphabets, but you know what I mean, right? The whole alphabet in the hood. So we lived in every letter of the alphabet. That's how I grew up. And if we weren't living in the city, we were living in Little Pine at my Japan's house, but she would often kick us out. So at some point, we'd be living in a tent on the reserve, me, my mom, and my sisters. And if we weren't living in Little Pine, we would live at my other grandparents in Powmaker. And it was a really interesting time because we never really had a home growing up. And well, actually, we had like 100 homes because we were always moving. So I can't call myself homeless. But the reason why I share these things with you is because of those things that happened to my mom, and she began to struggle with alcohol. And it was really tough because growing up, ever since I could remember, I've never known my mom sober, like my entire life. I didn't have a sober mom growing up. And so often what would happen is that we would get apprehended by Child and Family Services. So I remember being apprehended when I was a kid twice. I remember the day that like a white woman came and ripped me out of my mom's arms when I was 4 years old. And I was placed with a white family in Calgary at one point. So I remember vividly my childhood, and I really want to empower you that no matter where you come from, no matter where your parents come from, no matter what circumstances you were given as a child, you are so lucky and so blessed because the moment you become an adult, the moment you turn 18, your life is in your hands. And what I mean by that is that anything you could possibly dream of, anything you can think of can come true. And I truly believe that. I remember people would tell me that when I was a kid, when I was your age, and I didn't believe them, right? Because why would you? If things were so bad in your life, why would you ever believe that they would get better? But the thing is, when you can prove to the Creator that you have more love in your heart, despite all of the negative circumstances that you've been put through as a kid, I'm a believer that the Creator blesses you in ways where when you dream about something, when you dream about wanting a career, when you dream about wanting the perfect partner, when you dream about wanting the perfect home, once you become an adult, those things are going to slowly start unfolding before your eyes. Those things are going to come true. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. And that's what my presentation here today is about. So when I started speaking my language, I'm Cree, Shahia, they call me from Wapayton. So when I started speaking in my language, what I told you was I acknowledged all of you. I thank you for listening to me. I acknowledged our Creator. I acknowledged Mother Earth. And there's 4 levels in heaven that we are told by our medicine people. And in the highest level lives what's called the Ogi Sigawak, or the angels. And these are the Creator's spirit helpers. And whenever I speak, especially to youth, I call upon those 4 levels, and I call upon the Creator's spirit helpers to come and bless the discussions that we're having here today. Not only that, but I acknowledge the grandfathers and grandmothers that sit in the 4 directions, which is Kisikaupi, Sim, I think, is that east? Is that east? Yes? Yeah. So Kisikaupi, Sim, that's the sun. He sits in the east. That's one of our main grandfathers. And then in the south, do you know who sits there? Michael Jackson? Not Michael Jackson. Do you guys know which grandfather sits in the south? Biasu. You know what that means? Huh? Thunder. So Biasu sits in the south, Do you know who sits in the west for Cree people? Yotin, the wind, sits in the west. And who sits in the north? Pasquamustos, the buffalo, sits in the north. And this is the same for most Cree people. And when you learn to understand our ceremonies, you'll understand why it's that order of the sun, the thunder, the wind, and the buffalo. Because when you go to a Sundance Lodge, how many of you have ever been to a Sundance? Put up your hand. Everybody from Wapayton, of course, has been to a Sundance. You guys probably have the most beautiful Dakota Sundance I've ever seen in my life. It's so beautiful there. You guys are so lucky to have that. And everybody from Beardies, you guys are related anyway. Whenever Wapayton's having their Sundance, you guys should go see it because it's so beautiful. And you guys are like really related, interconnected anyway. You guys are pretty much the same family. Right? So anyways, when I introduced myself, I acknowledged all of these grandfathers and grandmothers that sit in the four directions. And as I go throughout my presentation and tell you these stories, you'll begin to understand why I acknowledge them. And you'll begin to understand why I carry this thing around. This is my grandfather. I didn't give him a name yet. I think I'll just call him Kihiu, but it's kind of awkward. My partner's name is Kihiu. Maybe I'll call him Kihiu too or something. So another thing that I said when I introduced myself in my language was I told you my spiritual name. And my name that I was given by the Creator is the white horse coming from the east. And the reason why I share that with you is because I want you to know that the first step in making your dreams come true and living a beautiful life, the very first step is getting your spiritual name. For me anyway, in my journey, the very first step was getting my spiritual name. How many of you have a spiritual name? About half. How many of you don't have a spiritual name? That's about half. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, this is how you get your spiritual name. You get some cloth, like Wepanaswin. I don't have an example here. You get tobacco, you get a gift, and you go and talk to an elder that you trust. Go to Wapayton Sundance and talk to one of their elders over there maybe, or the Beardies Sundance. I actually Sundance in Beardies. I danced there in June. But these are the spaces where you can go to get your spiritual names and bring that cloth, the tobacco, and the gift. And what that's going to do is that's going to be your spiritual offering for the spirits then to bless you with that name. And once you have this name, you have what's called a gwimi. And in Cree, what that means is it's your guardian angel or your spirit protector. So before getting my name, I don't know who was walking with me. Maybe I was walking by myself, but now I have this beautiful white horse that follows me around everywhere. And the most beautiful thing about getting a spiritual name is that these spirits, they are more powerful than you could ever imagine, and they can protect you from the worst that this world has to offer. They can do amazing things and perform miracles before your eyes. And it's so important and special that we all have a guardian angel and that we all build a relationship with them. Because the more we build a relationship with that guardian angel, the easier your life's gonna be. It'll get easier if you can consider. So this is me and where I grew up. Remember I said we used to live in a tent in Little Pine? I wasn't kidding. That's the tent that we lived in Little Pine. That's my Japon Nora Bear's house in the back. And if you can see me, I'm wearing shades in the middle with a blue shirt, holding a stick. I was a really bad kid. I was probably hitting somebody with it. So life was a struggle for me growing up, and I show this picture when I do presentations, especially for youth, because I really want you to understand and realize that no matter where you come from, you could come from the worst of the worst of the worst, no matter where you come from and the circumstances, when you get older, when you leave those circumstances behind, all of your dreams can come true. And I'm going to show you exactly how that can happen. So after living throughout poverty as a child and growing into a young man, I think I was in grade 9 right here. And so I was a really rough kid. Even in grade 9, I started doing drugs, I started partying, because that's how I was raised. That's what I was raised around, was drugs and alcohol and violence. My mom fought all the time. And so that's what I was taught as a kid as well. At one point, I was in the 9th grade, and I remember laying in bed and feeling so overwhelmed by anger, by depression, by anxiety. I couldn't handle all of the emotions that were coming through me because my life was so hard. It was too hard for me as a kid. And so I remember that was the first time that I actually prayed. I didn't know how to pray, but all I did was I started talking out loud to God. I remember I was in a foster home and I was laying in bed and I couldn't sleep because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. And I remember looking at the ceiling and just talking to God and telling the Creator how I felt and how I really needed my life to change. I needed it to change because I was like, I'm not going to make it. This is too much for me to carry. And so I remember the very next morning after I prayed, and that was like the first time in my life praying, I got a phone call at that foster home, and it was my mom. And she told me, and she was in rehab, and it was her 24th time in rehab. Could you imagine going to rehab 24 times? So if you ever have relatives that are going to rehab and it's only their 10th time, maybe after another 14 times they'll sober up. Just kidding. So my mom ended up calling me, and she told me on the phone, she said that she met someone in rehab. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And she's like, I'm going to move to northern Alberta to a place called Beaver Lake with this guy that I met in rehab. And she's like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, I guess so. I have nothing to lose here. And so I ended up moving with my mom to Beaver Lake in northern Alberta with her new boyfriend, who was wonderful. And we had a little log cabin on the reserve, and it's not as secluded as you think. There's a town called Lac La Biche. How many of you have ever been to Lac La Biche? Put up your hand. Okay. So it's like 8 hours from here, and the town is about the size of North Battleford maybe, and it's about 30 minutes away from the reserve, or 20 minutes away from the reserve. Anyways, what had happened was I was in the 9th grade, and I was at a new school, a new reserve, and nobody knew me. I was the new kid, and I didn't know anybody there. This place was unfamiliar, and it was really tough going to a new school like that. But you know what? I was tougher. Because I was raised in the hood like this, there was nothing that was gonna stop me. Anyways, what had happened was on the reserve, because I'm two-spirited, by the way, and you can slowly tell with my mannerisms and how I wave my hands around and how I talk sometimes, but anyways, on the school bus because we had to take the school bus from Beaver Lake to the city, and that's how we got to and from school, and I was in the 9th grade, remember? And so on the school bus, there would always be the kids from the res, and they would always try to bully me. They would call me a faggot. They would call me all sorts of mean things because of how I was and how I am. And the thing that they didn't realize is that I was raised in the hood, so I like to fight. And so every day I would get into fights with these kids on the bus because I'd always defend myself. It didn't matter how big you were. It didn't matter how many of you there were. I would always fight to defend myself because that's how I was raised. One day, the kids from Beaver Lake get sick of me, and there's 4 of them. One of them was 16 years old, one of them was 18 years old, one of them was 17 years old, and one of them was 21. So they were all older than me. I was just a 15-year-old kid. That was the same age where this story happened. So I looked like that. And I might have been wearing that same outfit too, because I like that shirt and that jacket. So anyways, these 4 kids from Beaver Lake, they got sick of me because I was always talking back when they would try to bully me. And they told me when we're getting ready for the bus to go home, one of them, he had gloves on, and he was just punching lockers and acting like a savage, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get you when we get off the bus, whatever. He swore lots, but I don't want to swear here. And so anyways, we're all getting on the school bus to go back to the reserve, and so I start texting my mom, and I tell her, I was like, I think these guys are really gonna like kill me. I said, you're gonna have to come pick me up. And my mom didn't believe me. She thought I was just whatever. But so I ended up getting on the bus with all those guys, and we started driving to the reserve. And sure enough, the closer we got to the reserve, I just felt tension. Like I was just scared, like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And at one point, we were getting closer to my house. We were getting like maybe 100 feet away. And all of the kids in the school bus started getting up, and they were all on their knees, and they all pointed their phones at me. And everybody's flashlights were on, and they were all pointed at me. I was like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? And so I turned around, and the guy with gloves was there, and he started hitting me in the back of the head. And so I did what I could to try to defend myself, but then what they didn't know is I was raised in the hood, so I had mace on me. So I pulled out a can of mace and I started macing them. But what I didn't realize is that these guys are from the res. They have bear mace. So they pulled out a can of bear mace and they started bear macing me on the school bus. And so the school bus stopped. Everybody, all the windows were open, the emergency exits. Everybody was screaming and crying and was running off the bus. And they left me there. And so I was the only one on the bus, and I was covered in the bear mace. But the fighting went on for at least a good 5, maybe 6 minutes, like because I was covered in blood. My whole face was pouring in blood. And the bus driver, he came back on, and he was going like this, going, my eyes, my eyes. And I was like, can you take me home? And he's like, no, you can walk home, he said. And I was like, oh no. And one of the other guys got onto the bus and it was the 21-year-old. And sometimes he would defend me because the other guys would be too hardcore with their bullying. And once in a while, he would defend me. And here I thought he was gonna help me or something. But that guy, he started beating the crap out of me even harder, like more than the other 3 guys. And so that probably hurt the most because he was so much older. And then after that, they left me on the bus, and I ended up walking home. And when I was walking home, I had pools of blood just dropping from my face. And the moment my mom seen me, she started to scream. She was so terrified and heartbroken and hurt. And the moment I walked into the house, I knew exactly what to do because I was raised in the hood. I grabbed a jug of milk and I went into the washroom and I started to clean myself. And I locked the door because I didn't want to scare my mom, but I could hear her outside of the door just crying and crying and crying, asking me what happened. And it was a really difficult chapter in our lives, probably the worst. And what had happened after that was because I maced the school bus, I was charged, I was placed under police conditions, I was kicked out of school, And I was not allowed to leave that house for about a good 3 months. And could you imagine not being allowed to leave a house where you don't know anybody on the reserve, and you went through this traumatic event? And what had happened was, whenever my mom and her boyfriend would leave, those boys, they knew where I lived, so they would come to my house and torture me. And it was a really difficult time because I started having panic attacks for the first time. It's where you're so scared you feel like you're gonna die, and you can die because you can have heart attacks when you go through such traumatic experiences. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night because every time I would go to sleep, I would have dreams about them coming in and killing me. And so it was a very, very dark chapter. And every morning I would wake up in the morning and I would cry all day long, and I would cry until I went to bed. That's how serious it was. And that happened for about 3 months. Finally, I told my mom, I said, if you don't get me out of here, I said, I'm gonna run away and you're never gonna see me again. And she told me, she said, I'm gonna get you some help. I said, okay, finally. And she ended up driving me from Lac La Biche to Edmonton. How many of you have ever been to Edmonton? Okay. You go to the water park? How many of you have been to the water park? So my mom told me she was gonna get me some help, and she took me to Edmonton. So we got there, it was dark out, and we got outside somebody's house, and this old man lived in this house. He brought us in, and he took us into his basement. I think he was actually Dakota. But anyways, we sat in this old man's basement because my mom said he was gonna help me, and he lit a little bit of smudge. And I asked that smudge man to go around and smudge people who want. And he lit some smudge, and we told him what happened on the school bus and how traumatic all of that was. And so after he smudged us, he used a fan like this, and he fanned down my back. And it only took about 30 minutes, but after that, we were done. It was over. So we left that guy's house, and all he did was smudge and then fan me with his eagle feathers, and I was so mad because my mom told me that this guy was gonna help me. I was like, what did he do? Just ooga booga with his smudging and his eagle feathers. What is all this, you know? Because I didn't understand. And before we went back to Beaver Lake, my mom wanted to stop at her favorite store, which is Value Village. How many of you love Value Village? Looking at the aunties, just kidding. So my mom wanted to stop at her favorite store before we left, and I was pissed off because whatever the Ooga Booga was, it didn't help me. And so I was in the van, and I had my head on the window like this, and I was crying in the Value Village parking lot in Edmonton. And my mom was in the store, and I remember looking up, and I was looking at there was a street light above me, and it was raining just a little bit. And when I looked into that street light, it went really bright like this. Like bright. And all of a sudden, I felt something that I've never felt before. I felt safe. I felt love. I felt peace. I felt inspired. I felt all of these things I've never felt before in my life. It felt like I was literally in heaven. And when I was looking into that streetlight, I seen myself as a man. And I seen that I was going to be very wealthy. I seen that I was going to be very successful. I seen myself in a stadium with thousands and thousands of people, and I was talking. And I felt so proud of myself. I felt so accomplished. It was like I was looking into my future, and I knew that all of my dreams, everything that I could ever dream of was gonna come true. And slowly, it started in my head, and then it went all the way down my body. But it just felt this light and this pure love. And the first thing that came to mind was, that guy drugged us. Here I thought that guy drugged us. And so I went into the store in Value Village, and I was looking for my mom, and I was like, what happened? What's going on? I was saying to my mom, and she was like, go wait in the car, like I'll be out in a bit. And I'm like, okay. And so I go wait in the car, and then we started driving back to Beaver Lake. It's dark out, and I remember seeing these tall pine trees along the road. The road goes like this from Edmonton to Beaver Lake. And I asked my mom, I said, what happened in there? And she said, my boy, remember this. It's because our people were here first that we have this power. We can heal ourselves. She said, never forget, our people were here first. So the last time I shared this photo, someone got really, really mad at me because you never, ever, ever take picture of a Sundance Lodge. But I didn't take that picture. I found it on Google. And maybe that's still wrong, but I want to give you an idea of what truly, truly saved my life. And the reason why I told you that story is because that was my first ever experience with our spirituality. That was the first time I remember ever praying in my life, was laying in that foster home and staring at the ceiling. That first time. And look what happened after that. A lot of really bad, scary stuff, but a lot of good stuff also happened, because it was through that horrible experience of getting beat up and being stuck in that reserve, in that house, where I was able to be shown that the Creator, God, is real. He's real, and He's always listening to you. All of the things that you say, that you talk about, the things that you want in your life, the universe or the Creator is always listening to you. And when you put your intentions behind asking and behind praying, my belief is that no matter what you ask for, the Creator will always provide those things. And the thing that truly changed my life was when I was 17 years old, I decided that I was going to start sundancing. And the reason why I decided I was going to start sundancing is because my mom got a test that she had cancer. For me, being raised by a single mother, she was my whole world. And even though she had her own struggles, she was all I had in this world. And when I heard that she had cancer, I was ready to do anything and everything in my power that I could ever do to take that away from her. That's what I wanted to do. And at the time, I was already kicked out of 4 high schools. I was kicked out of the one in Alberta. I was kicked out of Mount Royal in Saskatoon. I was kicked out of Bedford. I was kicked out of Nutana. And then the last high school, my last resort, was a place called Oskayak. How many of you ever heard of Oskayak? So Oskayak is, it's a cultural school in Saskatoon, and that was my last resort. If I didn't graduate there, then that was the end of the road for me. So anyways, at this school, they had sweat lodges, and they had elders, we smudged every day, and I thought it was, for me, I didn't grow up with my culture. I wasn't familiar with smudging, I wasn't familiar with sweat lodges. But the moment I went into my first sweat lodge and started to connect with my culture, that's what I really understood what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to be a part of those ceremonies. And so I met an elder at that sweat lodge from Oskayak, and he told me about this ceremony. And he said, if you promise the Creator that you can Sundance this summer, I have a feeling that the Creator is going to help your mom. He's going to help your mom with her cancer. And so what I did was I went to my reserve in Little Pine and I started Sundancing. And I started in the Cree Lodge. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done, because if you know anything about the Cree Lodges, you stand in one spot, but you're not allowed to sit down. So it's like all day you can't take breaks. You have to literally stand there. And when the singers are done, you go like this. So it was really, really, really hard. And so I ended up coming out alive, obviously, at the end of that ceremony. And when the elder took my tobacco and he asked me, why are you doing this? I said, I want my mom to be alive long enough to watch me graduate, I told him. And anyways, she's still alive, and that I think they called that cancer a misdiagnosis, and that's usually what they do, is when doctors, they can't explain why like somebody's cancer is gone or some crazy sickness is gone, they always say it was a misdiagnosis. That's what they say. And so after that miracle of my mom and her sickness being a misdiagnosis, I was really convinced that there was something about the ceremony that was like such an amazing thing. It was such a miracle, right? And so every single year after that, I would always go back every year, no matter where I was doing in my life, where I was, or I always made time in June and July to come back to our lodges. And I truly believe that this is the reason why I have a good life today, because like you've heard when I was introduced, after graduating from high school, I was elected the youth representative of the FSIN. I was elected co-chair of the AFN Youth Council, and eventually Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister's cabinet minister, had appointed me when I was 21 years old. I was appointed as an advisor to one of the cabinet ministers who run the Trudeau government. And so at 21 years old, I moved to Ottawa, and I had my own assistant, I had my own staff, I had my own office, and I was working as a government advisor. And my job was to implement youth programming for the TRC Call to Action number 66. So I did that for about 3 years. And while I was doing that, I was also in university where I was becoming a high school teacher. And I eventually became a high school teacher at the same high school that I was kicked out of as a kid for fighting. I was a high school teacher at Mount Royal. And so after that, a lot of things happened in the sense of I was inspired in different areas. And one of the areas that I was really inspired was law. And there was a lot of reasons for it. I'll tell you one reason. I remember living on Avenue E in Saskatoon, and me, my mom, and my sisters lived in this really big, rugged house, and we had no food for about 3 days. And I remember the third day, I was starving. That's why I like Sundancing so much, because we starved so much as kids. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Anyways, it was like the third day we had no food, and I was really starting to get like emotional, like oh my God, we have no damn food. And I remember this big truck pulling up in front of our driveway, and the truck in the back, it had a whole bunch of bags of groceries, like lots of groceries. And then this guy started bringing in all this groceries into our house. And I was like, oh my God, like what the heck, what happened? Who is this? And I asked my mom, I said, who is that? And she said, He's this guy, he helps people like this. When people are really, really struggling, she said, his name is Jake Tatusis, and he's a lawyer, and he helps families. So that was my first introduction to ever meeting a lawyer. I think I was about in the 5th grade, and I was really inspired by the love and selflessness that this man had for poor families. And there was other things that had happened too while I was young. I remember hearing about Neil Stonechild. Has anyone ever heard of Neil Stonechild? Put up your hand. Just the older people. When I was a kid, I think I was the same age. No, I wasn't the same age as him. When I was a kid, I was told I had to be careful because police officers in Saskatoon, they were picking up young men and they were bringing them to the outskirts of the city to freeze to death. So I was always told that when I was a kid, so I was always scared of police. And so I never forgot the name of Neil Stonechild growing up. And it painted this picture in my mind of how evil this world can be, how evil people could be, police officers and these systems and the justice system and the legal system. I didn't know any good cops back in the day. And because I lived in the city, I grew up in the hood. And so after that, when I was in high school, I remember hearing about a boy named Jordan Lafont. Jordan Lafont, has anyone ever heard of him before? So Jordan Lafont is a young man from Muskeg, I assume, and he was 18 years old when the cops beat him to death. And I remember hearing that story and being so heartbroken and also so angry at this system that really doesn't seem to value young Indigenous men and women. And when I was in university, that was one of the most impactful moments as well, because that's when Colton Boushie was murdered. Hands up if you know who Colton Boushie was. So Colton Boushie was another young man who was executed by a farmer in Saskatchewan. And when you read the transcripts, what you don't realize and what nobody realized in this country was that he was asleep just before he was shot. And the farmers, they wanted you to believe that he was stealing, and whether or not his friends were causing trouble, he was asleep just before he got shot in the back of the head. So the person who shot him was found not guilty, which means he was set free. But not only that, he had a GoFundMe page, and he received like hundreds of thousands of dollars from people who supported his actions and what he did. And that was another reason why I wanted to go to law school. And it was because I truly believed that something was wrong with this system, and something is wrong with the way the system treats our people. And it's not fair. It's more than not fair. To me, it's evil. And that is what truly inspired me after becoming a high school teacher, was to go to law school. And so I ended up going to law school and getting my law degree. And the entire time, every year, I would go back to these ceremonies, and everything that I am right now is because of these ceremonies. It's because of the Sundance, it's because of the Sweat Lodge, it's because of all of these ceremonies are the things that carried me, that no matter how bad my life was as a kid, when I started to grow up, these things helped me to pass my classes in university and all of that. And I'm gonna tell you a story of how exactly they did that. So I wanted to show a picture of the kind of lawlessness that I grew up with and the kind of poverty that I grew up with. I showed a picture of somebody that is homeless and laying down because me and my family were often homeless, and it wasn't even that long ago that I remember my mom panhandling in Saskatoon. She was one of the people panhandling. So whenever I'm walking around downtown, doesn't matter where I am, I always carry cash because I give them to homeless people. And I don't judge homeless people when I don't care if they're buying a bottle because sometimes they're so sick that they need that to survive through the day. But anyways, the reason why I have these pictures is to remind myself and the audience of where I came from and what helped me get through. Okay, how do I do this? So I'm going to tell you a story now. And I'll give you a break after I tell you this story. So when I was in law school, I'm not the smartest person, by the way. I'm not like, I don't think of myself as somebody that did really good in school. And when I was in law school, I really depended on our ceremonies and I depended on our medicine, and I'm going to tell you how. So in my second year, I had 3 back-to-back exams. And so I had one exam on Wednesday, I had one exam on Thursday, and I had one exam on Friday. And the Wednesday one was a 6-hour exam. You have to sit down for 6 hours, and it's timed. The one on Thursday was an 8-hour exam, so I had to sit down and write for 8 hours. On the Friday was another 6-hour exam. And you know how in school, in order to pass your test, you have to get over 50%, right? Or like 51%, right? In law school, you have to get over 70% in order to pass. If you get under 70%, you fail. And sometimes when you fail the exam, they'll make you retake the whole course. So these exams are extraordinarily stressful. And what had happened was, after my 6-hour exam, the night before, and the next morning was my 8-hour one, I couldn't sleep because I had so much anxiety and I was so scared. And I didn't know what to do. I slowly started to accept the fact that maybe law school wasn't for me. Maybe this is too hard. Maybe this is just too much for me. And while I was laying in my bed, I remembered that I had my secret weapon was in the kitchen waiting for me. Does anyone know what this is? Sweetgrass. So in my language, he's called Wika Squino. Wika Squino. That's his name. He's an actual man. And so he was sitting in my kitchen table, and it was my last resort. I didn't know what else to do. I was going to fail these exams and drop out of law school, and I don't know what was going to happen with my life after that. And so I lit up the sweetgrass, I smudged myself, and I started to pray. And I told Wika Squino that I don't think I was going to make it through this exam. I said, I'm not going to make it, I can't sleep, and I really, really need your help. And so I went back into my bed, and slowly I fell asleep. While I was sleeping, something came and woke me up. I heard shh, and I had a headboard here, but there was a rattle. It came into my room and started hitting me in the head, and I was alone in my house. And so I started to freak out thinking, what the heck is that? And then I remembered that I asked Wika Squino here to come and help me. And so I stopped freaking out and I tried to calm down. Anyways, after that, I had a good sleep after that rattle came and hit me in the head. So I ended up passing those exams. And I had a good sleep that night. And the reason for that is because I have a relationship with this grandfather named Wika Squino. And because I have a relationship with the Creator, with our ceremonies. And what I really want to stress with all of you is that these are not just for show, and we're not doing this just for fun when we're smudging and stuff. You can actually ask these things for help. If you are in a life or death situation, or maybe you just really, really, really want something to happen, these medicines, these grandfathers and grandmothers, they have the power to give you everything that you need in your life. But the trick is you have to really mean it. You have to be so sincere and so pure of heart when you ask these grandfathers and grandmothers for help. And the more you build a relationship with them over time, which means you can talk to them. Every day I talk to Wika Squino like he's my best friend. And if you ever wondered how to pray, the way I think about praying is you're talking to your very best friend. That's the way you pray. My mother-in-law, she told me a story about she went to go fast for 4 days or something in the mountains. And after those 4 days, she said an eagle came into her teepee. She said, there's a real big eagle. He came and flew into my teepee and he was in there. She said she was so scared. And he told her to pray. And so she sat in that teepee. And while she was sitting in that teepee praying in there, that eagle came and stood on her head like this. And he had big claws, she said. She could feel his claws on her face. And she was just praying real hard and real sacred and real powerful with as strong as she could. And that eagle looked at her and said, "What are you doing?" And she looked up and she's like, "I'm praying." And he said, "Not like that." And she's like how? Like, how do I pray? And that eagle told her, he said, "Like I'm your best friend." And so all of the tension and the fear that she felt went away, and she just let go. And she started to talk to that eagle like he was her best friend. And I never forgot that story, because it's the same thing with all of our medicines. It's the same thing with all of our helpers. You can talk to them like your best friend, and you can talk to them often, every day. A lot of them have names. Like I said, this one's Wika Squino. I'm going to call this one Kihiu too, because my partner's name is Kihiu. But the more you build that relationship with these ceremonial things, the more they are likely to help you. And so, by the way, I ended up earning these. These are some things that the feathers that I dance with in the Cree Lodge, and I earned them in the Cree Lodge. I earned them after my, I think, 11th year dancing. But I want to show you what they look like. And the reason why I brought them was to show you the beauty of what's waiting for you in our ceremonies. All of the amazing things that are waiting for you. And not only the objects, but the kind of accomplishments that are waiting for you in your life. I was the first person in my family to start sun dancing. I was the very first. Actually, no. My Auntie Judy Bear was the very first. I was the second. And after her and myself making that decision to start sun dancing, today I'm proud to say that my mom, who was an alcoholic her entire life, started sun dancing. And I think she's danced her 3rd year in Whitefish this year. And my sisters, my 2 sisters, they started sun dancing too. And all it takes is one person in your family to start, and then slowly, it takes some time, but surely all of your other family will start to dance too. And when that happens, you're gonna see beautiful things in your life change. You're gonna see beautiful things. It's gonna be so beautiful that you're gonna start to get, oh, that's my signal that you guys need a break. But your lives are going to be so beautiful that you're going to start to get bored. It'll be boring, and you're going to want to go cause chaos or something. But I want to thank you guys for listening to me. I'm going to give you a 10-minute break before we get back. Wait, do you guys want to do a game first? Okay, we'll do a game. Everybody stand up. Okay, the first game is, can I have you come up to the stage, please? Yeah, yeah. What's your name? Roberta? Just to hear. Can you do me a favor? Can you fill up my coffee? She's already my favorite person. Okay. So what we're going to do is everybody's going to find a partner. If you're sitting down, you're not playing. And if you're not playing, you're not going to win money. So I have $100. But what I think I'm going to do is the first winner, I'll give them 40, and then the second winner, after, because I want to do another game, I'll give them 60, okay? Deal? So everybody has a partner? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play rock, paper, scissors. Best out of 3, no cheating. If you lose, thank you so much, Roberta. Can somebody make sure she has a partner, please? Okay, thank you. So we're going to do best out of 3, no cheating. And if you lose best out of 3, you sit down. Okay? 1, 2, 3, go. If you lose, sit down. If you win, find a new partner. If you win, find a new partner.
Oh, there you go. Partners, if you won, you guys can play together, you and Roberta.
Okay, if you lose, you sit down. If you win, you find a new partner. If you don't have a partner, put up your hand. We have a, behind you, look right here.
Oh, look, that's the guy who's a partner. Where's the one you got? He's a partner. Go away. Look, he's coming. No, don't be shy. Look, right here. Did you win? Did you lose?
If you don't have a partner, put up your hand. Are there any singles? We got one here without a partner. In that, hey, you need a partner? Okay, after you're done this round, come onto the stage. Winners, come to the stage. Come stand up here. Okay. Everybody ready? All right. We gotta like try to face the audience a bit. Okay. Now you guys face your partners? No, face your partners? Yeah, pick your partner. Okay. Ready? Everybody cheer. Okay, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Yay! Okay, winners stay up here. Okay, all right, stand in a row here. What's your name? Okay, wait, say your name in the mic. What's your name?
Justin,
Where are you from?
Standing Buffalo.
Everybody give it up for Justin from Standing Buffalo. Okay, say your name. Our finalists.
Xander,
Xander, where are you from?
Walpayton.
Wapayton. Wapayton in the house.
My name is Jasmine and I'm from Walpayton.
Woo, Wapayton. Wapayton's good at this. I know you guys are using medicine. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, okay, we'll do the last rounds here now. Who wants to go first? You two? Woo! Okay. Here's the. Hey, wait. Stand in front so everybody can see you. You guys are cheating. Just kidding. Okay, cheer them on. Come on. Yay! Woo! Good job. Awesome. Okay, Justin from Standing Buffalo. Yeah? You won $40. Good job. Good job. All right, go for a break, 10 minutes. Start getting everybody back inside. Okay, I'll call you in a bit later. Love you. I'm gonna give everybody 1 minute, and then we're gonna do the draw for the $60, or we'll play the game with for the $60. All right, 30 seconds. Anybody in the hallways? Anybody having a smoke? Anybody in the bathroom? Come on in. You're up next. Okay, let's get started. Who here plays Fortnite? Put up your hand. Fortnite is for noobs. I'm just kidding. I play Fortnite. I play Fortnite like every day. I play it too much. I shouldn't be playing it. I think you can, but I don't have a mic and I suck. So I'll be losing a lot. I'll ruin your KDR. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, Ranky Shoppy. All right, so we're gonna get started. I have like 20 minutes left with you guys. I think at 11 o'clock I'm finished, but I still want to play a game for the $60 before I finish, so I have to try and wrap this up in about 10 minutes. So I want to ask you now, there is no wrong answer to this, and please, anybody could answer. I want to ask you what you think the purpose of a law is. And if you're not listening to me, please. It's okay. It's not your fault.
She doesn't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you what you think the purpose of having a law is. So this table doesn't know. What about this table? What? You guys can just shout it out. To protect people, to make order. What else? To right or wrong. Okay. To be safe. Okay, listen to everything you guys are saying. The meaning of having a law means to protect people, to keep order, and to keep people safe. We all agree, right? So when we look at what's happening on our reserves, for example, and how we have so many struggles there, why do you think the law isn't protecting people, keeping people safe, or keeping order? What's the issue there? And it's the same thing for us in the cities too. So even in the cities as Indigenous people, we struggle with things like safety. We struggle with things like order. We struggle with things like protection. And if the law is supposed to be what protects us and keeps us safe, what's going on with the law? It's broken, exactly. It's broken, it broke, yes. You guys are right. The law is broken, especially for our people. And the reason for that is the answer to this question. What laws do we follow today? Think about it. What laws do you follow? What's that? So we follow Canadian law, provincial law, criminal law. If we follow the speed limit, I don't follow the speed limit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyways, what I want you to think about is if laws are supposed to be what keep us safe, what keep order, what keep equality, something's wrong with the laws that we have today, because it's not working for our communities. It's not working for us on the reserve. It's not working for us in the cities. The laws that we have currently imposed on us, and I want to be very clear, Canadian law is not our law. That was something that was forced on us. So all of the negative experiences that I told you about that I went through as a child, all of those negative things had come from the dysfunction that my family had felt through residential schools. Residential schools was an act of Canadian law, just like the Reserve was an act of Canadian law. The laws that were imposed on our people, they don't belong to us. Residential schools did not belong to our people. We were forced to go, which means we were forced into this world and forced into these laws that do not belong to us. So if these laws don't belong to us, what laws do? From my understanding, in the Cree way, and it can be similar to the Dakota way too, but not really. Some things are the same, some things are different. But in the Cree way, you are born with a spiritual identity. You have a spiritual name. You have a clan system. You have a family system. How many of you knew that you have a clan system? Put up your hand. A clan system. The Dakota people, if you're Dakota from Wapayton, you have the 7 council fires, the Ocheti, right? So these are all the laws that we are supposed to be following as a people. One of the laws that we have as Cree people, and it might be the same with Dakota people, is we have what are called rites of passage. How many of you ever heard of a rite of passage? Your rite of passage means when you get to a certain age, so put your hand up if you are 15 years old. Put your hand up if you are 14 years old. How old are you guys? Put your hand up if you are 16 years old. Okay, so you're about around the age of when we're supposed to be going through our rites of passage. And what that means is the same way the Japanese people have a way that the Creator gave them, Chinese people have a belief system that the Creator gave them, East Indians have a belief system, Muslims have a belief system, Christians have a belief system, Catholics have a belief system. Everything has something that was given to them by the Creator. What we were given are these rites of passage. And when you get to a certain age, like the age that all of you are at right now, this is when you are supposed to go through your rites of passage. And what I mean by that is this is the time that you need to think about fasting. This is the time that you need to think about sun dancing. This is the time that you need to think about our ceremonies. And you might not think that all of us are supposed to be traditional people, but before residential schools had tore apart our families, every single one of us was a traditional person. It didn't matter who you were. Before the churches were on this land, everybody had to go through these rites of passage. It was our law. It was our belief system. That when you get to a certain age, you have to go through these things because that is what's going to connect you to the Creator. That's what's going to connect you to our ancestors. That's what's going to help you build relationships with all of the spirit helpers so you can live a better life, so you can live an easy life, so you can be happy. And these are the laws that we were given by the Creator. Our people were given original instructions when He created the first people. And I'll give you a little story. So, sometimes I ask myself, as Nehiawak or as Cree people, why are we so spiritual? Like, what makes us so spiritual? Like, what's the Yoga Booga? What is it? Like, I don't know. And what this comes from is our creation story. How many of you know your creation story? Put up your hand. Look around. So not very many people know their creation story. And the reason for that is because residential schools and Canadian law, these systems, they made you forget. That's why you don't know your creation story. But in that story holds the meaning of your life, the purpose of why the Creator put you here and why you exist and where you come from. That is what your creation stories are. And our laws, as a people, they come from those creation stories. So residential schools, they tried really, really hard to make us all forget what those creation stories are. But there's still a few of us still hanging on, right? Just kidding. But so one of the creation stories I was given, I'm going to tell you a little bit. I can't tell the full version because there's no snow on the ground. But this is the short version. The Creator made Nianan, Iskwewak, 5 women. Creator made Nianan, Napewak, 5 men. So there was 10 people created as the first human beings. They were called Kisei Iwinawak. Say that, Kisei Iwinawak. Kisei Iwinawak. So those were the first humans ever created. And what had happened was the Creator gave them laws, and they had to live by them. One of the laws the Creator gave them is you cannot kiss your cousin. Who's kissing their cousins out there? Just kidding. And what that means, okay, listen, hey, that table, quit fooling around back there. That's enough. So the first ever human beings, they were not allowed to kiss their cousins. And because they were related, they could not make babies. So what happened? The Creator spirit helpers, the Ogisigok, the highest angels, that is Giskaupi Sim, the sun, Xenopiasu, the thunder being, Yotin, the wind, Pasquamostos, the buffalo. All of these spirit helpers had come and they took pity on the Kisei Iwinawak, and they ended up having children with these humans. And those children were called Nistameamagan, the firstborn. And those are our ancestors, not just as a story, but physically, which means the blood of, like our actual blood of our ancestors, we are related to the sun. We're physically, biologically related to the sun. We're physically, biologically related to the thunder, to the wind, to the buffalo. Not just as a Pocahontas fairy tale story, but for real. We're actually related to them. They're our great, 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 great grandparents, because they're the ones who had children with the Kisei Iwinawak. And that's why we have such strong relationships with these spirits. That's why we have such powerful relationships with them, because when we ask them for help, it's the same thing as asking your grandparent for help. And they look at you as their grandchildren. That's why they call you Nusim. And so why that's so important for you guys to understand is because you need to understand how powerful you are, how powerful your bloodline is, how connected you are to this earth, to this land. And that understanding comes from your creation story. That's what's waiting for you, is in those stories is the empowerment of how beautiful we are as a spiritual people and all of our laws. These are the laws that I was taught by my teacher. So my teacher is a medicine man. He's from Driftpile. His name is Fred Campio. And he was doing UEP lodges since he was 21 years old. And he also does his own Sundance and all of that. But I've been learning from him for about 6 years. And before that, my late dad, he also taught me a little bit as well. So when I talk about like this spiritual stuff, I want you to know that none of this comes from me. None of this knowledge comes from me. I'm only like a parrot that's able to hear information and then relay it back to you. This is just what I hear from my teachers. And if you ever find somebody who comes to you and brags about having knowledge, that they're all powerful and whatnot, you know those people are full of shit. Okay? Never believe people like that. So these are some of the laws that I was given by my mushum. Sewatsuin, that's kindness, treating people with kindness. Sagituin, love. Manachituin, dapatemuin, bonitamuin. All of these beautiful things are the cheat code to life. It's the cheat code. If you are able to understand the laws that we've had since time immemorial before residential schools, then you can have anything that you ever could dream of in this world. These are the first laws that was given to our people, and when you are able to practice these things and treat yourself with these things, you can have anything you want in your life. When I asked you, why are our laws not being followed today? I want you to recognize the laws that are still sleeping, right? How many of you had seen these laws before I just showed you? A few of you? So a lot of these laws are still sleeping, right? But the moment that you as individuals are able to remember what these laws are and start applying them to your life and to start living by them, your life is going to blossom. Beautiful things are going to happen. You're going to have stronger, pure relationships with the Creator and the Spirit helpers. And so think of these as the cheat code to life, and look at all of the issues that happen on a reserve. Ask yourself if we're still following those laws. The answer is no, we're not following those. Those things are sleeping. And someday, it's going to be your generation, actually. It's your generation that are going to bring these laws back to our people. So these are some of our ancestors. Pete Guanapewiwin, pound maker. Do you guys know who is in the middle? Who is it? Who's that guy in the middle? Chief Sitting Bull. Yeah, you got it. If you guys didn't get that, I would be so disappointed. And then on the right, we have Mr. Hey Musqua, or Big Bear. Why I want to show you guys their pictures is because I want you to see what your ancestors look like. I want you to see what your relatives look like, your grandfathers, your grandmothers, the ones that are in the spirit world that are helping you. You are related to these people in one way or another. And these are the people that are waiting for you in the spirit world. They're waiting for you to ask them for help. You have to be able to ask them for help and then build that relationship so they can help you in your life. So we have to understand that our law as a people is spiritual. And if we want to feel safe, if we want to be protected, if we want order, if we want peace, all of those things that you talked about, the purpose of law, you have to understand that our laws as Indian people are spiritual, and we don't have a choice. It was what the Creator had given our people. He gave other cultures other belief systems, but He gave us a spiritual way of life. So whether you like it or not, to the day you die, you're going to be a spiritual person. And one of the things I want you to consider, and in the ceremonies, the grandfathers and grandmothers always tell us this, is you have to ask yourself, where do you want to go when you die? Where do you want to go when you pass away? And the reason for that is there are 4 levels in the spirit world. The first level is called Bawamawin. And every single one of you here, you were in Bawamawin last night. You know why? What were you doing last night? You were sleeping. So when you go to sleep, you are in Bawamawin, the first level of the spirit world. The second level is where the Atayukan live, or the storytelling spirits. The third level is where Mamustuagan live. The medicine people who pass on, they go to the third level. The fourth level is where the Creator lives. And that's also where the Ogi Sigawak live, the angels, like the sun, the thunder, the wind, and the buffalo. And why that's important for us to understand is when we pass away from this world, we have to make sure that we lived by these things, because this is how we're going to get back to the Creator. When we go through those 4 levels, we have to make sure that we lived by these things, that we treated people with kindness, with respect, with love, and that's the best way to get to the Creator, is to live and be a kind and loving person. So I want to finish off with one more story before I finish, because I have like 3 minutes left. Come on, keep going. Clicker. So I don't even look like that anymore. I got too old. So how do we bring back our laws as a people? How do we begin to feel safe again? How do we get protection as a people? How do we bring order back to our reserve? From my understanding, the first thing that you need to do, and it's your generation that is going to accomplish all of this, by the way, so you have a big job ahead of you. The first thing that you need to do is get your spiritual name. You need that identity, and you need that guardian angel to walk with you and to protect you. The next thing you do, I can't even read that. Oh, I got glasses right here. Is find a teacher that you trust, which means if there are elders in your community that you know, or maybe in different communities, I had to find elders from other reserves to learn from, but you have to find somebody who you really, really, really trust. And those are the people that you learn from. And what I mean by learning, I mean you learn their ceremonies, you learn their sunnans, you learn their sweats, you learn their songs, you learn their teachings. That is how we are going to bring back our laws as Indian people. You practice these ceremonies consistently, because it doesn't matter if you're traditional or not. This was the way of life the Creator gave us. And I don't want any single person in this room to think that you are unworthy of our ceremonies, because you are not. I don't care if you're a drunk. I don't care if you're an addict. Nobody on this earth is unworthy of the love of our Creator. Nobody is unworthy. Oh, that's my time is up. And so when you practice our ceremonies, you start to share them with everybody that you love. You share them with our children. You share them with your grandchildren. And that is how we are truly going to bring our laws back as a people. Because when we remember who we are, we will begin to bring back all of those laws that the Creator gave us. When you remember who you are, you're going to start to learn that creation story. You're going to learn why the Creator put you here and how the Creator put you here. We have to start thinking like our ancestors did. You have to start thinking like Chief Sitting Bull. And this starts with how I started this presentation. When I was a little boy, and remember I was in a foster home, and I was laying on that bed, and I was staring at the wall, and I began to talk to the Creator. And I hope and pray that after today, that you start to talk to the Creator too. Kitam skaten awal ka kyo na naskamon hai hai.
Thank you very much, Pirama Inina Wopida, to Andre Bear for his beautiful presentation. Let's give him another round of applause. Oh, you still want to do it? Okay. Maybe during lunch? Okay. Okay, we're going to do his game during lunch. So everybody will come back here and there'll be one more game. But thank you to each and every one of you guys for all of your patience and understanding and for giving all of your attention to our presenters here. I know it touched me. I'm very thankful. Like we said, we stood in ceremony together. And I have a story. I have a quick story. We're at a ceremony, and when you're at a ceremony, you all have to eat, and everybody gets distributed the food. But Addison, my baby, she was in front of me, and Andre was serving soup. And Addison looked at me, and she's like, "I don't want soup, Mommy." And so he passed her. And then, but at the corner was my mom. And those of you that know my mom, she's looked at Andre and she's like, "You missed her." Just gave him shit. I'm sorry for swearing. But then he just stopped and then he come back and he served her. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, I guess you can't be spoiled in ceremony." But Addison she actually ate it though. But yeah, I'm very thankful for his presentation, thankful for his teachings that he brought here to us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going into breakout sessions. We're going to have yoga across the hall, and in the room next to it is going to be cookie decorating. Please ensure that as chaperones, your youth are in the 2 rooms. And then once we're done in there, we're going to be coming back here. There was evaluation forms that were handed out to each and every one of you guys. If you can complete them, please. And at the end of every session, we expect that you guys complete your evaluation forms. Please note that there's going to be big prizes tomorrow because we're going to be doing a youth needs assessment. Our prevention workers will work with our chaperones in each community to ensure that every youth here gets their youth needs assessment completed, because that's your entry into the big draws. But thank you to each and every one of you guys. You guys can proceed. Yoga's across the hall on this side, and cookie decorating is on this side. Thank you, everybody.